What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of It's Called Football. Jerry Walker alongside me, as always, is Jackson Fyda. And Jackson, we have an exciting stuff to talk about. We're down to one match left coming into this final weekend. A lot to play for. There are some matches this midweek. We won't touch on the big one as it is Tuesday, and we won't get this episode out in time. But Tottenham and City, massive match for the title parameter in the title race. Arsenal fans are finally Tottenham fans, which is kind of weird to see, but
Crazy.
side note there. We also have Europa League race. Conference League has a 3-team race, and they all play tomorrow, so we'll touch on that. But kick it off before we hop into what happened this past weekend. How are you doing?
Dude, I am good. A recent college graduate, which means now I've got more time to write articles. As soon as my wrist heals up, we'll be back.
Oh, yeah. Hard to write with one bum wrist, but they'll make
Hey.
it work one way or another.
Exactly.
But starting out, before we get into the title race and all that, we did have a race at the bottom of the table for relegation, and I think that race is over, safe to say. Burnley
Yeah.
and Sheffield United have officially been relegated, and unless, like we were saying, unless there's a miracle of a 12-goal swing between Luton and Nottingham Forest, Luton is down. I don't see that happening.
No, there's no practical way that this happens. We would be living in some weird kind of fantasy world if it does. Like at this point, it's over. Luton's going down. And for a bit, it looked like they'd make things interesting because they're up 1-0 against West Ham at the half. So it was like, oh, shit, this is going to be real interesting if they can hold on here, make things fun on the final day, but not to be. It was a fun run, but it looks like both Burnley is officially down and Luton is likely, like 99.9% likely to follow them.
Exactly. Crazier things have happened, but I don't see a crazy thing happening here, especially considering Forest is playing Burnley and Luton is playing Fulham.
Yeah, it would be probably one of the craziest things to happen on the final day of the Premier League if Luton could stay up.
Yeah, I think it would have to be one of the most outrageous endings, but sadly for them, it looks like it's the 3 that came up or the 3 going back down. We will have new faces next season. Leicester and Ipswich already promoted. Leeds are playing Norwich. Southampton's playing West Brom in the playoff. Both the first legs are 0-0, so a lot to play for there. 4 teams that have been up and down in the Premier League as of late, so we will see someone return. Now to the fun stuff from this past weekend. We'll start with the Man City Fulham match because that was the first one that happened, and this is why we all worry about Man City, or never worry about Man City. Someone always steps up, and this time it was Gvardiol. 2 goals, could have probably gotten a hat trick, become the first defender to do so, but gave Alvarez the penalty, and I think that's a good decision.
Yeah, it's more about the team rather than him. You give it to the dude who's better at taking penalty kicks because at the end of the day, City's trying to get their goal difference up as well because if they do make a mistake, you want to try and make it as close as possible. Now, will this happen based on the table? Probably not. Arsenal has a decent goal difference advantage, a +3 right now.
Yeah.
But City, it just takes one more game because they have that game in hand, and they're right there again. So you definitely want to score all the goals you can. Massive moment from him. He could have been the first one in history, which is kind of crazy that it's never happened before, I think. You know, like even though it's rare to see a center or a defender like that scoring a hat trick, like I don't know. I feel like at some point it happened. Could have seen history, but he did the respectful, responsible thing to do. And that's why the City team is doing what they're doing right now, is because they play for one another. They play as a unit, and they know what it takes to win. Even someone like Gvardiol, who just joined the team this year, he's already been immersed in that culture. We're here to win. We're not here to do anything else. And that's what the City team is doing. And like you said, this is why we don't worry about them. They've been here before, and this is what they do at the end of the season. They're just beating teams and beating teams and beating teams, and they're looking comfortable doing it. So, again, would have been cool to see Gvardiol get that hat trick, but he did the right thing by letting his teammate, who's a little bit better, I'm going to guess, of a penalty taker. Yeah. So, cool moment in City. Man, they're looking real good heading into the final week. I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I'd put the house on City.
Yeah, I agreed. And we'll get into the upcoming stuff shortly. But like just looking at City's recent results, you mentioned the goal difference. There's a point where Arsenal had like a 10-goal difference. City have now, since pretty much the second to last weekend of April, they won 4-0, 2-0, 5-1, and 4-0. So they are making sure that they score goals at an ungodly rate. Obviously, Holland had 4, but it's not just him. Alvarez has 3 goals over that time. Vardiol has a couple. Phil Foden's been scoring. Everybody's really been stepping up for this team. Bernardo Silva had a couple assists so far in the last match. So it's kind of what we continuously say, that they have the players and they just step up when the moment's needed the most. So
Yeah,
they've
they do.
done that very much this time.
It's what happens when you have the best manager in the world. You just you're disciplined when you need to be disciplined, and that's why they keep winning. It's why they keep winning. It's why they keep winning. They have a guy up top in Pep Guardiola who knows how to get the best out of his players and how to get them to focus when it matters. He just knows how to win. That's all this dude does. He wins. He wins. No matter who they bring in. Now, granted, they've got probably the most stacked squad in the world, bar maybe Real Madrid,
Yeah.
but you still got to go and win it. And a Premier League's a marathon, man. You got to play 38 games. Like, it is a marathon. So to be doing what they're doing, it's crazy. And it's a testament not just to the players, but also to Pep Guardiola as well.
Yeah, it really is. And it's the fact that they can be struggling, I use lightly by their standards, I guess, and still find a way to, okay, we're down to the last 3 months. Let's get rolling and let's
Now,
start winning on things. So
yeah.
always seems to be the way it was last year. Arsenal had a big lead at Christmas, kind of. Man City decided second half of the season they were going to not lose it at all. A couple years before, it was Liverpool, finished with 97 points. City somehow clutched up. This is
Mhm.
nothing out of the ordinary, but who knows? Maybe Arsenal can put some pressure on them, and they do have the pressure because obviously this past weekend Arsenal won 1-0 at Man U, and this was a game we both kind of, at least I thought, would be kind of one that could possibly trip up the Gunners.
Yeah, I was surprised by it. Well, first of all, the lineup Man U put out was a little off-putting. Like, it looked like they wanted us to win.
Yeah.
Like, it really did with the lineup at playing Casemiro at center back, which, by the way, he's the reason we scored. It
Oh,
was
100.
Casemiro, 100% lagging behind the play. And then even at, like, the commentator at the time made a good point. Like, sure, you're not naturally a center back. You're lagging behind the play. Whatever, make that excuse. But then when you're in the box, you're back to being a center defensive mid, which is just not letting a dude run across you and score.
Mhm.
So Casemiro kind of sold on that. And I think the lineup was just interesting because it just didn't look like, man, you put out a winning lineup.
No, not at all. It seems almost like what we had talked about with Tottenham potentially losing, so
Yeah.
Arsenal won't win the title. It seemed like Man U lost so that City won't win the title.
And that's how the game felt. Like, it didn't really feel like they were putting any like, they were obviously trying still, don't get me wrong, like, they were still creating chances, they actually had more possession and more shots created, but I don't know, it just felt a little, like a little dead on their
Mm,
side, like, it was just interesting, I'd say, to say the least, because I thought this would be the game that Arsenal loses and the title race is over, but we won again. Arsenal's looking really good, I'll say that right now, but it's not in Arsenal's hands, unfortunately. It's up to City. But Man U did everything in their power to make sure that Arsenal could continue piling on the pressure. Casemiro and Johnny Evans at center back.
yeah.
Absolutely absurd.
I guess that does play into the thing that Man U does have a lot of injuries. Looking at their injury list, Bruno was out, Maguire, Harry Maguire, Martinez, Luke Shaw, Rashford, Varane, all these guys that could be playing out injured. Not an excuse because everybody has injuries at the time throughout the season, but tough for them. And now it looks like Rafael Varane is leaving at the end of this season. I wouldn't be surprised if Casemiro leaves.
Yeah.
There's talks that Saudi Arabia wants to bring it, the Saudi League wants to bring in him and Bruno Fernandes. So could be a very different Man U team come next season.
And that might be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Being completely honest, that might be a good thing. You might want to do a little factory reset and just focus on the youngsters that they have,
Yeah.
rely on the Kobe Mainus, the Garnachos, and then try to build a young core around them with Hoyland up top as well. It might be a good thing for Manchester United because it hasn't been working. Well, it hasn't been working ever since Sir Alex retired, but recently it just hasn't been working for Eric Ten Hag as well. So you might as well give it a new attempt. Get rid of the old guard who hasn't been working for you. I do feel
Mm-hmm.
for Bruno Fernandes if he does leave because I do think he's actually been pretty good for Man U during his time there. annoying ass player and
Oh, fair.
criminally overrated at times, but he still has been solid, I'd say. And then focus on these younger guys and try to slowly rebuild over the next few years. I don't think you can just suddenly go out and buy these players who are past their prime and expect them to come in and perform just like they've been
Exactly.
doing with Varane and Casemiro and these guys. You might have
Yeah,
to focus more on building towards the future.
absolutely. And I think it might be time for Harry Maguire to move elsewhere. I just don't know who their defensive pairing would be because it sure as hell ain't going to involve Johnny Evans or
No.
even Lindelof struggled. Maybe Lissandro Martinez could be good
I
for him.
think I
I
think
think
he
he
would be good, yeah.
but a lot of question marks there. But on the Arsenal side, Trossard gets the goal. You said it. It was a Casemiro mess up, but Arsenal did what they had to do to get the
Mm.
3 points. Wasn't pretty, but it was relatively straightforward for them.
Yeah, I didn't really feel as threatened at the end of that game. Like, end of the Tottenham game, felt incredibly threatened. End of this game, felt comfortable even when Man U had the ball in the final third. It just did not feel like they were going to score.
Absolutely. And then only other match from this past weekend that really we're going to talk about because some of them were rather unimportant and unimpactful. But Aston Villa Liverpool. First of all, did you see that match?
I did not. I was driving,
Uh,
unfortunately.
Fair enough. What a game it was. Finished 3-all. 2 minutes in, Liverpool get on the board because or not Lissandro Martinez, the goalkeeper Martinez, Emiliano Martinez. Ball comes to him, he bobbles it, drops it, reaches to save it, and pushes it into the goal. It's an own goal 2 minutes in. I think the commentator said that he now has the most own goals by a goalkeeper in the Premier League history.
Really?
Not a great record to hold.
That's not one you want.
No, not at all. But Aston Villa fought back. Tielemans got a goal 10 minutes later, and then 2 goals, one towards the end of the first half, one at the beginning of the second half, put Liverpool up 3-1. And seemed like because Aston Villa's fighting for Champions League, Liverpool is playing for absolutely nothing at this point. They kind of blew everything.
Yeah.
Seemed like it was over. And then out of nowhere, Jean Duran, of all people, scored 2 goals in 3 minutes.
Mhm.
Remarkable. And Ollie
That's an
Watkins.
MLS product for you.
That was what?
An MLS product for you there right
Was
now.
it? Where
Yeah,
did
John
he?
Duran. Where'd he play? Chicago, I think. Yeah, Chicago Fire.
Wow. There you go. MLS stand up.
Mhm.
Represent. Not bad for a 20-year-old as well. So
Yeah.
it's already making good moves. This one Aston Villa really should have won. There was a cross from Leon Bailey that it was bizarre. There's Ollie Watkins and who was it? Was it Douglas Luiz? It was some defender.
Mm.
They kind of got tangled up with each other and looked like they thought the other was a defender. And ball comes across. Ollie Watkins is behind the defender. Defender goes to kick it, whiffs it from about 2 feet away. Ball rolls out of bounds, and that would have been a 4-3 win, and that would have all but secured Aston Villa a spot in next year's Champions League.
Mhm. Probably a good thing from an Arsenal perspective and my perspective that it didn't happen because now Tottenham still has something to play for.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully for that, but again, I still need to watch these highlights, but Liverpool has absolutely collapsed.
Yeah.
They were right there, then one result didn't go their way, and just like that, bam, just losing, 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 drawing, drawing, drawing. Obviously exaggerating a little bit with the amount I just put into there, but they're just not playing like they were. I thought this team would be inspired. It's Jurgen Klopp's last year. I thought they would go try to win it, and I thought they honestly had the best chance out of, well, Arsenal and them to really push Man City towards the end. But God, they have just fallen off, and they look you're up 3-1 in a game like this, you should see it out. It's a big win. It's a good momentum building win. And obviously you're gonna be in Champions League, whatever already, but you don't just wanna limp your way to the finish line, especially with a manager who's given you so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they just look disheartened. It just feels bad. I mean, when Mo Salah is talking about there's gonna be fire if I talk about Jurgen Klopp right now, that's just a sign that things are going terribly in the locker room. Maybe it's a good thing he's moving on if that's the case. Maybe it's a good thing if some players move on. I don't know, but they're limping to the barn right now, and it is very sad to watch.
Yeah, it's not pretty. Not the send-off they wanted to send Jurgen Klopp after all he's done there, winning multiple domestic trophies, including a Premier League title, won the Champions League with him. So he's done great stuff. And they went from thinking of a quadruple to, ooh, we got the EFL Cup.
Yeah,
And that's about
exactly.
it.
One trophy.
But yeah, looking into it, it was Diego Carlos with the miss of the year, is a yard out
Mm.
on that one for Aston Villa. But like you said, kind of works out for Arsenal because it means Tottenham has something to play for today. We won't get into that one for much detail. Like I said earlier, we are going to get this episode. It will be out after that match, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would talk in depth about that. We could do a little predictions. I could try and get this out quicker, but we'll see. So, moving on to this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how it looks right this second at the top of the table. Arsenal have 86 points, 37 matches played, 60 plus 61 goal difference. Man City have 85 points, 36 matches played, and a plus 58 goal difference. Say what we expect. Man City comes out and beats Tottenham today. Likely it'd be maybe 1 or 2 goal difference. So they'd still be trailing Arsenal on goal difference, but they would have a 2-point lead going into the final weekend. And if that's the case, yeah, obviously give me advantage Man City, but we'll start with that one. Man City plays West Ham. That could be a little trickier than it should be.
It could. West Ham's a decent team, and it's on the road as well. So,
It's at Man City.
oh, it is at. I
Yeah.
don't know why I misread that. So it is at Man City,
Yeah.
but it is still a tricky game nonetheless. West Ham has shown little flashes here and there where suddenly they can play with anyone they want. They score goals on set pieces, and if they defend the way that they can defend, they can definitely make things interesting. And if there's one thing we know about Manchester City, is that they like to make the final day interesting when it comes down to the final day. The Aguero goal, and then pretty recently as well with the who were they playing in that game? Was it Villa?
It might have been the one against when Liverpool
Yeah,
or someone was up like 3-0 and
two
looked like
years
it was
ago.
all over. Yeah,
It was a Villa game, I think,
I
where
believe
they
so.
were out, and then suddenly Gundogan scored. Maybe he scored the winner. I forget who,
Yeah,
but
they
they
scored like
find
3 goals in a 5-minute stretch, something absurd.
yeah, they find a way of doing it. So maybe City pulls one of those, but they do like making things interesting. And West Ham is a team that definitely can make things interesting.
Mhm.
They're a good team, probably going to be out of the European competitions next year, it's looking like,
Yeah.
but still can make things interesting. So it's not a walk in the park.
No, not at all. And they have struggled as of late in the Premier League. Obviously, they beat Luton this weekend, but it was a 5-0 thrashing by Chelsea before, 2-2 draw with Liverpool, and a 5-2 loss to Palace.
Yeah.
Not exactly what you want to see coming into the final day as a Arsenal fan, but I'm leaning Man City. I just think they're far too good. I think they'll get at least a point, maybe even all three against Tottenham, and I just think it'll be another year of Man City winning the Premier League.
It's looking like that. And it's unfortunate, but it's looking like the Premier League is losing that competitive the competitive edge that it used to have where other leagues you'd be like, "Oh, look, it's being dominated by Juve and Serie A." Or, "Oh, look, it's Bayern yet again." It's kind of becoming Man City right now. Other leagues are you're seeing Bayer Leverkusen winning. You're seeing a bunch of other teams winning in Italy. Now it's kind of the Premier League doing this, but I completely agree. Man City, I think they win today, and I think they win on Saturday. I think they do so pretty comfortably. I don't think they'll mess around on the final day. I think they'll win like 2-0 or something like that, win yet another title.
Yeah, the interesting part of all of this is, say for somehow, some reason, Tottenham and Man City do draw today. Then everyone's level on points, and Man City will need to win by 3 or 4 more goals than
Mm.
Arsenal have. Because I'm not quite sure what the tiebreaker is. If you've same points, same goals for, or same like goal difference, maybe it would be goals for is next.
Or head to head after that.
It'd be head to head, but right now in terms of goals for, it's only 2 more by Man City, and
Mm.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I know Arsenal won one of the 2 head to head, one of the matches.
And then they
Did they?
drew.
Then they drew the other. So yeah, that'd be advantage Arsenal.
That's
There's a lot of things that could happen. It's going to be very, very interesting. But on the Arsenal side of things, They take on Everton. This should be relatively straightforward, in my opinion. Arsenal. I will say though, Arsenal's won 5 straight at least. Everton have won 4 of their last 5. So
Mhm.
they're not playing poorly, but it's just the teams they played. They beat Forest, they beat Brentford, drew with Luton, and beat Sheffield United. They also beat Liverpool in the midst of that. So good win there. And they can do it, but they're on the road. So
Yeah,
I think it'll be Arsenal. I think it'll be multi-goal victory.
I agree. I think Arsenal takes care of that game. I think we're gonna finish the year really strongly. Like, I'm really impressed with it. Even if we don't win the title,
Oh yeah.
great year and a step in the right direction because we were right there till the end. Obviously, will be disappointing, but it's still a process, you know? You don't build a city in one night. You gotta build the foundations and you gotta get going throughout. That's what we're seeing with this Arsenal team. They're competing, and at the end of the year, when they need to win, they are winning these games. So it's a good sign no matter what, and I think it'll continue in this Everton game as well. Something to play for real. I think we'll be up. I think there'll be a moment where maybe we look like we could win the title because like we'll score first before City or something like that. But and I do think Arsenal ultimately wins and they win probably like 2-3 nothing. I'm
Mm.
going 3. I feel good about the game. But yeah, City still probably going to win the league. But I do think Arsenal takes care of this one, makes things interesting.
Oh yeah. I mean, Arsenal's really put it to City and made this a massive title fight. Since the beginning of the new year, Arsenal has 1 draw and 1 loss. Man City only has 2 draws. No losses. So that's where the slight margin is. And it was just that Aston Villa game for Arsenal that kind of put them behind a bit. But it's one of those things you can't do much else. If
Yeah,
you're Arsenal, you kind of now just have to sit back, cheer on your biggest rivals in Tottenham, and hope things fall your way on the final day.
that's all you can do.
Really is. It makes it for a very exciting title race. Last year's was over with about 3 weeks to go, I want to say. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have something this year. Predictions sounds like we're both on board with Man City winning the title. At least we think Man City will win the title. But who knows? Crazier things have happened, like Luton coming back from a 12-goal difference on the final day.
Make things real fun for us.
You imagine the scenes.
Oh, it'd be crazy.
Speaking of, we've talked about Tottenham a little bit, talked about Aston Villa briefly. Those 2 teams are technically still fighting for Champions League with each other. As it stands, Aston Villa has a 5-point advantage. Tottenham has 1 more match to play than Villa, obviously the one today against Man City. They need to win both and have Villa lose. I think Villa's all but through to the
Mhm.
next Champions League.
Yeah, I do too. They've got 1 game left. It's Crystal Palace, and basically, they just need to take care of business. Now, it is on the road, and Palace is actually favored to win, which is kind of crazy, I think. But
I'm
yeah,
wondering if that's because the bookies and all that think that maybe Tottenham loses today and then it's over, or they get a draw today and then the Champions League race is over.
yeah, it has to be that because there's no way you look at this and say that, you know. But yeah, no, nonetheless, I think Villa takes care of that game easily, especially if they need to. If Tottenham by some miracle wins today, which come on. But if they do win today, I think Villa takes care of business on the final day. But
Mm,
if not, it's not if it's not necessary, I can see a world in where they lose that game, kind of go a little easier. But still, I think this Villa team wants to finish the year strong as well. Everyone wants to go out on a high note, even if you've got nothing to play for or you've already secured something. And I think they'll do that. Palace, I'm still not a huge Crystal Palace fan, to be completely honest. I think I've said that repeatedly on this show, but they did have a good game against Wolves. Maybe try to come off that momentum into this final game, but I think you'll agree with me. Villa should take this one no matter what.
yeah. And I mean, hey, good on them. It'd be the first time in the Champions League since the 1982-83 season. Made the quarterfinals there. They have won it once before. God, when did they win that? The European Cup, they won it 81-82 season. So it's been a long time coming, over 40 years for Aston Villa, and they'll be excited to get back to playing Champions League football because they were in Europa League this past season.
Yeah,
So
conference,
I'm with you. Oh, Conference League. Yeah,
conference,
because West Ham and Liverpool
yeah,
were Europa.
conference league.
But I'm with you. I don't think they lose to Crystal Palace. Even if Tottenham was to beat Man City today, Tottenham will probably beat Sheffield United, but it'll be too little, too late. Give me Aston Villa, and good on them.
Good on him, man.
Only other race that we have going on in the Premier League going into the final 2 days, and this is one that does have 2 days worth of stuff going for it. The race for the Conference League. Everyone's new favorite, the real tournament of Europe, the one that everyone watches the whole time. No, I'm just kidding on that. But 3 teams racing for 6th place. As it stands, Newcastle and Chelsea both have 57 points with 2 matches left. Newcastle do have a 10 goal better goal difference. That doesn't sound right, but
We all know we know what you mean.
And then there's Man U in 8th place, 54 points, minus 4 goal difference. I'm going to start with the matches on Wednesday. That is tomorrow. Brighton and Chelsea, and then Man U and Newcastle. Makes it very, very interesting, especially that Man U Newcastle.
It does, because there's everything to play for in that game. Yeah. Which, first of all, the fact that Chelsea's here is remarkable, and Newcastle as well, because for a little bit they looked like they were completely out of it. Now both these teams are in 6th and 7th place, so they're like right there, trying to get a European spot for next year. And how lucky are we that they get to play each other tomorrow, Newcastle and Man U? Because Man U wins that game, suddenly everything's flipped on its head again. Their biggest problem heading into this is goal difference as well, because they're on -4, which is absolutely absurd. But yeah. I'm just looking at this game. I don't know how confident I feel in Man U, to be completely honest. The way they looked against Arsenal was flat. They looked non-caring. And again, as you mentioned, a lot of players are injured. And it looks like some players are already just set on leaving the club, like Rafael Varane. Newcastle, I think, is going to be more of a cohesive unit. They're going to come together. I think they're going to get this done. I know it's going to be at Old Trafford, but I'm really feeling Newcastle in this game. I think they'll win. I'm going 2-1. I don't think it'll be like a blowout or anything. I don't think it'll be a competitive game, but I'm feeling Newcastle in this.
See, if it was in Newcastle, I would absolutely be on board with them, but there's a weird voodoo magic at Old Trafford, especially when something needs to happen. We've seen it so many times with Sir Alex in charge, and even recently we've seen some kind of crazy late goals that maybe shouldn't have been as late as they were, but at Fergie times stands through. I can very much see that happening in this match where Man U needs to win. They need to come out and they need to win by multiple goals is the big issue.
Yeah.
I think that's where Newcastle takes advantage of them. Because I think Man U's going to be pushing forward a lot, trying to get goals. And with that attacking front for Newcastle of what? Isak, man, who else is on there? Then a whole load of guys that can step up in goals. Because is Callum Wilson, is he injured?
I'm not positive.
He was out this past weekend.
Yeah.
He was injured there, but maybe he's back. Harvey Barnes has shown he can score goals and do stuff when needed. Sean Longstaff scored the goal this past weekend. I think Newcastle will get it done, and I like your scoreline of 2-1. I think it'll be very close, and I just think it'll be a kind of that counter-attacking style that Newcastle will take advantage of Man U's pushing forward.
And Newcastle's already had Man U's number before this year or during the season. I mean, they've already beat him twice, and once in the league and once in the EFL Cup.
Yep.
So
they've now won 3 straight against Man U, going back to last season. All of them were shootouts. All of them were clean sheets. So it's something that maybe even the Newcastle defense will just be there and be like, wait, we just need a draw today. Let's get a draw, and then we'll go into the final day and figure it out from there.
But yeah, Newcastle, we're both on board with that. We think they're going to win. Take it to the
bank. Chelsea, though, that's just as intriguing because we've talked time and time again about sometimes Brighton is really, really good and sometimes they're really, really bad. Chelsea has been really bad and kind of stepped up as of late. Won 3 straight against Tottenham, West Ham, and Nottingham Forest. That Forest game this past weekend scored twice in the 80th minute onward after going down 2-1 6 minutes before. So they have a fight in them that we haven't seen at all this season until now.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. And heading into this game, I don't know about you, but I just I want to lean Chelsea just because, like you said, they're the way they're firing going right now. But I feel like a draw is gonna come out of this. Like I got a 2-2 draw in my mind, and why? I don't know. I feel like Chelsea will leak a couple goals, but I also think they'll score a couple goals. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I'm exactly with you. I think it could be Chelsea's advantage, but I just have no idea what Brighton team's going to come out. And Brighton can change this whole thing because they play Chelsea at home on Wednesday, and then on Sunday, when everything's happening on the final day, they're hosting to Man U as well.
Yeah.
So Brighton could be spoilers, and hey, they are mathematically eliminated from this, but they could still jump up to eighth place and jump over Man U if Man U was to lose twice. So
Mhm.
there's a little bit of something to play for there. I think they do win one of those two. And
Mm.
I do think Chelsea drops points against either Brighton or Bournemouth at the weekend. Leaning more to this Brighton one just because it is on the road. It should be a little more difficult, but who knows? I'm going to go with a draw right now with you. I think it'll be a 1-1 or a 0-0. Be one that Chelsea doesn't want to allow goals. They don't want to lose, so they kind of sit back. And Brighton just passes around and kind of is rather uneventful for 90 minutes.
Yeah, see, I just don't feel confident in Chelsea's back line. I really don't. I never have. This whole season is just kind of a disaster, and in their last game, sure, they got all 3 points, but you give up 2 goals to Nottingham Forest, and you gotta come back and win that game
Yeah.
because so it's just things like that. I just feel like they leak way too many goals for me. When you look at the amount of goals they've conceded this year, I feel like 61, that's that's a fair number of goals against, you
It
know?
is.
It's not nothing, like, terrible. It's not like Sheffield United at 101, which holy shit, but it still is a fair amount for a team like Chelsea, which you'd expect, and especially when we look at teams like Chelsea's in the past, where they kind of, the park the bus mentality with Jose Mourinho. We got used to these, strong defensive performances. I don't know, I feel like they leak goals a little bit too much, so I think you'll see that in this game.
With 61 goals allowed, that's the eighth most in the Premier League this season. Clearly, four of the teams who are ahead of them are the bottom four of Forest and then the three relegated sides. So it's not been great defense by any means. They do have 73 goals, which is a lot compared to most of the teams. So they have been scoring, but it's the fact that they're conceding so much. And to your
Yeah,
point, it is that back line is sketchy.
mhm,
Thiago Silva, what was their back four against Forest? It was Char Tevo
yeah,
Chaloba,
Chalobah, yeah.
Thiago Silva, guy who I don't even Batashili and
Matty Shield, yeah,
Batashili and Cucurella.
yeah.
That doesn't give me any confidence in them at all.
No, I mean, I think Chalobah's actually decent. Him
Okay.
at right back is crazy. Matty Shield, he's got potential, but he's just young. He's like a deer in the headlights sometimes, I feel like. He's just not quite there in terms of giving the confidence. And you could play Axel Disasi, but I think he's a worse version of Matty Shield at this point. It's it's just one of those situations. They don't have that great defensive core right now, in my opinion. And Cucurella, I've never been a fan of him ever since he left Brighton.
Yeah.
I think defensively he is lost half the time. It's easy to play in behind him, and he makes rash decisions both on the ball and without the ball. I'm not a huge fan of him. I feel bad for Thiago Silva, but even he hasn't been super great at all points this season. He's showing his age. He's showing his wear and tear. It The Chelsea back line has just not been convincing. It's not stout. It doesn't make me feel confident when I watch them play. Offensively, I think they're starting to figure things out.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Cole Palmer, you got goals. Jackson, despite him being absolutely terrible at soccer, has scored a lot of goals, which
Yeah.
good on him. Mudryk can score every now and then. I think Madueke is pretty dangerous. You've got decent attacking options. That's
Oh,
just
yeah.
back line, man. The back line just brings everything down. And I'm also not a huge Petrovic fan in goal as well.
Mhm.
I remember when Arsenal played him, he let in a near post left footed shot from Leandro Trossard that in no way, shape, or form should have ever gone in. So I think it's the back line and the goalkeeping for Chelsea. It just doesn't
Mm.
exude confidence. I just think they have goals to give up, and it's just whether or not they can score more than the other team scores at this point.
It really is, and I'm curious to see because made his return this past weekend, and as soon as he came on, Chelsea scored twice. He had an assist. Reece James.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if we'll see Reece James start tomorrow. I know
Might
it's
as well.
yeah. At this point, it's just go for it. Does have that long injury history, so maybe they don't want to push him too much. But I'm sure if you need someone to step up, he will step up because he wants to earn his playing time back.
You'd gladly step up too.
Yeah, absolutely. But that wraps up the midweek two matches. Looking at these teams for the weekend, kind of go through those. We kind of talked a lot on them. Brighton, Man U. Man, train of thought just went. Chelsea hosting Bournemouth and Newcastle are away to Brentford. All three seem very winnable for the teams that need to. Give me advantage Newcastle of those three matches. Massively advantage to Newcastle.
Yeah, Brentford towards the bottom of the league. Same amount of goals allowed as Chelsea, which is crazy because they're 2 spots above relegation, which makes the Chelsea situation even more bizarre. But yeah, I think Newcastle will bang in goals against them in that game. But confident in Newcastle going into that as Bournemouth, that's going to give Chelsea problems. No matter
Right.
what they do in the game tomorrow, Bournemouth will give them problems. This Bournemouth team is good. They've been performing really well the second half of the season. That's not a walk. That's not a, like Chelsea should win that game, I think, but that
Yeah.
is not a shoe in at all. And I, I don't know. I'm going to lean Chelsea in that game, but it's not as confident as, like you said, Newcastle is. And then, yeah, Man U traveling to Brighton. It's about as tough. Like besides playing a team obviously higher than you,
Yeah.
as tough of a final game as you could have.
And that's a long trip as well for them, going from the north part of England to the south part. So it's going to be a nervy away day for all those going from Manchester down to Brighton. But
Yeah,
I'm with you. I think we could see Brighton get another draw or even upset Man U. I don't know if it'd be an upset, but get the result against Man U. I can see Bournemouth creating trouble for Chelsea. I just don't see a world where Brentford caused too many issues for Newcastle.
I agree. It's just, yo, just give me 1 second.
So with that, I mean, I'm just going to go and keep talking while Jackson does his thing. And I'm thinking Newcastle wins the sixth place spot. I think they get Europa or Conference League stuff set, and we'll go from there. But a lot of stuff left to play for. Should be exciting. A lot of other teams that have just jack shit to play for, but give me Newcastle. Whether it's the results this weekend that matter, the ones on Wednesday, I'm taking them to be that English representative in the Conference League next season.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's theirs to. I mean, they've got the head start anyway. They're ahead of
Yeah.
both these teams. They just need to take care of business. And like we said, no way they don't take care of business against Brentford. We don't think they get Brentford gives up goals. Newcastle's got a lot of goals in them with Isak up top. Some of these other attacking options, maybe Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon, all these guys.
Mhm.
Give us Newcastle. You hear
Almost,
Vendetta is riding Newcastle here.
I will say the one thing with Brentford is they're finding ways to get points. They have one loss in their last 7 matches, and that was to Everton. And that even was a kind of second half goal that they really shouldn't have conceded. They've drawn 4 of them, 1-2, but it's been against far less opposition. They drew with
That,
Villa, drew with Brighton. I guess they did draw with Man U as well. So there are those, but I just don't really see them putting up much of a fight against Newcastle, especially on the last day when because at that point they were still kind of in that relegation battle. So they needed results. Now they're safe. They can breathe. They're all good.
yeah, no, this is theirs. They should take care of business. Obviously, crazier things have happened. We always say that. We'll see. Maybe things will get interesting, but we're not thinking that.
No, and Newcastle have historically been better, especially as of late. They've won 4 straight against Brentford, 1-0 earlier this season on a Callum Wilson penalty, but Who knows? This is why we love this sport. You can never say, "Oh yeah, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen." The only thing we can say with that is Man City's probably going to win the Premier League, and one way or another, Real Madrid's going to win the Champions League.
Yeah.
That's about it. But let's just go for it through these other matches, unless there's anything else on any of these three races that you want to touch on.
I think we've covered it pretty well.
Well, there we have it. We gave our predictions on all those. Burnley, Nottingham Forest. Give me Forest.
Give me Forest. Give me Forest.
Ugly game, but give me Forest on the last day. Why not? Aston Villa going to Crystal Palace. We both already kind of talked on that a little bit, not in extreme detail, but you say Crystal Palace is just a team you can never trust, really. I'm with you. I think Aston Villa gets this one done. I think they win like 2 or 3-1.
Yeah.
The other team in the title picture at one point in the season, Liverpool hosting Wolves. Part of me wants to take Wolves in this one.
Based on how Liverpool's been playing, I think they'll win because it's Klopp's last game.
Agreed. And Wolves have looked dreadful as of late.
Yeah.
They've won one of their last 5, and that win was against Luton.
Yeah. So I gotta go Liverpool, especially it's going to be at Liverpool. It's not going to Wolves, so you have the fans going crazy. I'm sure we'll see some kind of
send off for
some kind of send off for Jurgen Klopp before the game and after the game. It'll be a whole thing, and I think they'll want to win for him, even though they're having these issues probably in the locker room. I think they'll want to win for him. I think they'll get it done.
Absolutely.
2-0.
2-0. All right. I was gonna go 3-1 again. I think they get goals. Another relegated side, Luton hosting Fulham. At Luton, this might be one that they just win some weird game that they find a way to get 3 points and send themselves down on a high. Don't really know what to expect. This is one because Fulham's been mid-table mediocrity all season and pretty much for the last 5-6 years. They're never in any threat of making Europe. They're never in any threat of being relegated. There was a little scare earlier in the season, but that's why we play 38 matches, is to figure this stuff out. Give me Luton. Let's do it crazy. Give me Luton like 3-2.
I was going 2-1 Luton.
Okay.
The exact. You're at home. I think they know they're going to get relegated. Realistically, it would take something amazing, incredible, unheard of for them to stay up. But I think they'll play with a little chip on their shoulders saying, hey, let's prove one more time that we did belong here. Their fans will be going with them. I think 2-1. Proper send-off back to the championship.
Yep. Back to where they probably, I don't want to say back to where they belong, but back where they'll be competitive at least.
Mm-hmm.
I can see what happened with Luton being very similar to what happens with Ipswich, where it was kind of within 3 years or 4 years for Luton, you made the jump from League One to the Premier League, and it just didn't pan out for them.
Yeah.
Other one, the only other match you haven't talked on, really, Sheffield United, Tottenham, and in the words of, I guess, Hugh Jackson, who said it first, I will always bet against Sheffield United.
Mm-hmm. Give us Tottenham.
Yep. Give me honestly, give me 4-0 Tottenham.
Yeah, I was going to say 3.
Okay.
At least 3.
I just think it's one that, because if Tottenham does beat Man City or gets points against Man City and still has a shot, they have to make up an 8-goal difference over these next 2 games. So I think they're going to come out and look to just batter Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Well, there we have it. We'll have one more episode next week before Premier League season, recap the Premier League season, preview the FA Cup final, maybe talk some other stuff. But Jackson, any final thoughts on today's episode? Anything else in the football world?
You Spurs. Can't believe I'm saying it, but at 2:00 Central Time, 3:00 Eastern Time, everyone, let's be Spurs fans just for one day.
Yeah, it's all the videos and all the Twitter, all the social media stuff of Arsenal fans singing Tottenham songs and kind of like, oh God, why now? But there's a moment when you need your rival to step up, and this is the one time Arsenal needs Tottenham to actually do something.
Just for once. For once, don't be mediocre as hell. Just, like, for once, do something, you know?
Otherwise, hear me out. We're gonna see a banner or something be like, because their trophy case is pretty empty, as we know.
It
We might
is.
we might see a banner of "We prevented Arsenal from winning the Premier League."
Oh, they'll hang that in the rafters at White Hart Lane.
Yeah, put
Like,
it right outside the visitors' locker room when Arsenal comes to play, and it would be I could see it, but
yeah,
no,
I could too.
don't have much else. Actually, I'm gonna have a quick gander before we wrap it up at the other playoffs that are going on at the moment
Mm.
because there is some excitement in those, but I think it's all relatively straightforward. I just need to figure out who's in what. Because I know MK Dons was knocked out by Crawley Town in the League Two playoffs, so they play Crew Alexandria, which they beat Doncaster on penalties. So that was an exciting leg. Won 2-0 down in the first leg, won 2-0 in the second, one on penalties. Do you have any opinions on who gets out of that one? Because that'll be this Sunday as well.
I hate to admit this, but I've been lacking severely with tracking this stuff because of all the school stuff I've been going through, but so I can't talk on it, but
Oh, that's
I'm
very fair.
probably gonna be tuning in now at this point, just watch.
Well, who's your prediction then? Just uneducated guess: Crawley or Crew Alexandra?
Give me Crew, bro.
Yeah, I'm
Give
I'm,
me
I'm, gonna
Crew.
take, I'm gonna take Crawley just to be slightly different, and I think they looked a little bit better at times in their matchup, but who knows? And the other one, League One playoff, which is Saturday. Bolton Wanderers hosting Oxford. Bolton, a team that was in the Premier League for quite a while,
They were.
and then if how the mighty have fallen, or
Mm.
the average have fallen. But they did what they needed to get by Barnsley. Oxford did what they had to do to get by Peterborough. I do not know. I'm going to lead Bolton because they've looked the better team all season. They finished with 87 points. It's one of those things. It's like they're 10 points clear of Oxford, which also might mean Oxford's just there and going to go win. So,
Give me Bolton, bro.
yeah.
Give me Bolton for
Moving
no
on.
other reason than fallen giant.
Yeah. Exactly. But there we have it. We got our little tangent on non-Premier League stuff in, like we always like to do
Mhm.
one way or another. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our Vendetta Sports Media colleagues or us doing any other shows and podcasts and anything else sports wise. Make sure you check out the website. We're going to have more articles coming out this summer. Very big summer in the world of football. Euros, Copa Americas, even some Olympic football.
Mhm.
MLS still going on. It's going to be a crazy transfer window. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. From us, thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the final weekend, and we'll see you next week.